that idea ferments over time and develops into something that takes a different form from what it started. So by giving it the time to grow a little, sometimes it turns into something different, but it never would have happened unless you had the germ of the idea in the beginning that you let, expand a little bit.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia. I'm the host of Shopify Master, the weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how to identify which projects to abandon and which to keep, why entrepreneurship is not always about acting fast, and why they added a digital course to their product line. Before we get into our show, I want to share a strategy some businesses are using to help manage cash flow during COVID-19. They're selling gift cards. Gift cards give customers a way to support you right now. We've seen some creative ways to market them, like selling gift cards at a discount, giving special offers for customers who redeem them in the future, and adding free gift cards to high-value carts as a bonus. As part of Shopify's response to COVID-19, gift cards are now available on all Shopify plans, so you can start selling them right away. For more information, visit shopify.com/giftcard. Today, I'm joined by Laylee and Kevin from SuperKit. SuperKit designs dreamy cat collars, cat harnesses, and accessories that cats love and really work. And was started in 2017 and based out of London. Welcome, Laylee and Kevin.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, so the birth of this idea really came out of a scary time for you. Tell us more about what happened.
Oh, it was a real nightmare, actually. A strange way to start a business, but we have a cat called Lola, and she was quite young at the time. We live in London, so here it's fairly normal to let your cat have access to the outdoors, at least for certain parts of the day. So we'd let her sort of go out and about, but one day she didn't come home, and we were really worried about her. Not just because we were concerned about her whereabouts, but there'd been a sort of backstory where we tried to put a collar on her because we kind of knew that she should be carrying ID, like at least something to say that she was kind of loved and had a home. And she previously removed every single one that we tried to put on her. And it was, we were like burning through cash, and it was getting so frustrating that, we gave up. So when she went missing, we kind of knew that we'd messed up. She had no collar on, she had no ID, and she was just kind of roaming the streets. And we were kind of distraught cat parents, weren't we?
Yeah. So, luckily we did get her back. Really fortunately, through a sort of a local group that we put a message out, and we got her back. But we kind of promised to try harder. We were sort of like, we have to make it our mission to get her to wear a collar, basically, and to keep it on.
Yeah, and actually, it happened. It was really serendipitous that at this time, our two cats were fighting quite a bit, and we'd been in touch with our veterinarian about ways that we could help them, well, specifically help our more active cat expend her hunting energies in play and not towards her sister. And the vet had recommended that we try to find natural materials and create sort of homemade toys out of them for Lola to play with. So I had loads of scraps of leather and other materials lying around. And so we just started experimenting. And our big breakthrough was when we realised that, it's not a dead cert that cats are going to remove their collars. They don't have to be intrinsically uncomfortable. They also don't have to kind of intrinsically be bulky in a way that can snag on things. We knew we wanted to put a safety buckle in, so that's kind of the tricky thing, is it should spring open in an emergency scenario. But when we started using natural materials, we found that our cat was just so much more comfortable in them because, scent is a really important sensory modality for cats. And then we also started working with materials that were really lightweight and slimline so that we could create a collar that kind of didn't have a profile on our cat's neck. So they kind of forgot it was there. It couldn't get snagged on things. And all these, after, many months of experimentation.
Tried different things. Yeah, leather just seemed to come together. Yeah, we could make it strong enough, but light enough and flexible enough is the key thing, I think. And the sensation that a cat has against its fur of the material is so important. That I think we hadn't considered it enough. And when we found that leather stayed on, we were kind of like, well, that's great. Well, we'll make a collar out of leather then.
Yeah, we sort of knew we kept our one tricky customer happy. So, and she was tricky. So yeah, that was kind of how it all started. And then we found that other cats were just as sort of fussy about their collars as our cat was, and it went from there.
I mean, we realised it when we researched, just seeing, how do you get your cat to keep their collar on, and realised, in forums and message groups that loads of people had the same problem, and that collars were almost considered semi-disposable, in that you'd buy a pack of 5 from Amazon and you'd get through them in a certain amount of time, and then you just go and buy another one. It was almost like we thought, that doesn't seem to make sense. They're obviously not happy. So why don't we make a collar that makes them happy?
Yeah.
Now, this is like it sounds like when you first started this product development process is really just for yourself. Tell us more about that. Like what's your background? How are you able to just create a collar? It's not, it looks simple, but I'm sure there's a lot involved in creating something that that will work.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't really planning on it as a business when we started it. We had been looking for an alternative business for the two of us for quite some time. We both worked in TV before this. Lady was a producer and I was a cameraman. And that's how we met and worked together for quite some time doing that. But we'd always on the back burner just thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could do something ourselves? We always kind of wanted to have our own business and work together. We tried a few different things and they hadn't really worked out. They weren't ideal.
One of our early abandoned ideas was an ice lolly business in London, which obviously does not have the weather that's most conducive to weather. But we were quite good at like abandoning maybe less good ideas quickly.
Yeah, we tried stuff and abandoned it, and we did some of our own TV production, doing sort of like small commercial stuff for the internet, which didn't really tick the box. After working on quite high end stuff, we sort of didn't really get much satisfaction from that, and that isn't what we wanted to carry on doing anyway. So this kind of came at a nice point, and I think Laylee realised this. Well, there's a market here. There's a lot of people who are in the same position as us. It's a good product. It works. Let's make them and see if they sell. And see if they work for other people. And so that's how we kind of started in a very small. While we were still working in TV, just as a sideline, as a little hobby, making them ourselves and selling them.
Yeah, I think there's an important nugget that you dropped in there, which is around being able to quickly abandon projects. So, given your experience now where you have projects in the past that maybe worked a little bit, fizzled out, or just you lost interest in it, and then finally one that did work, tell us more about like what you saw between those two, not two really, all the other kind of projects that you've left in the past, and then SuperKit. Now, what did you see that allowed you to, or kept you moving forward and saying this is actually something that's worth pursuing more?
I think it was a combination of factors. I mean, one was that we saw some early, I think the feedback from our very early customers who are so dear to us. I mean, they're still our customers and part of our community now, and they really, they took a leap of faith.
It was important for us, I think, to run the business that we wanted. It had to be our business, sort of in our own image, if you know what I mean. It had to be something that we were proud of, and that we wanted to deliver a product that people really like. The purpose wasn't just to have a business to make money. It was although it has to work, it was to do something that made us happy and that made other people happy, and that served a purpose and provided something that people needed. And so I think this ticked a lot of boxes that we realized that people actually really wanted this. There was a need for it, and it worked, and it made us happy.
Yeah.
It made the customers happy, it made the cats happy, and it sold, so it made money as well, which made the business work. So it ticks a lot of boxes for us. In
the really early days, we would get reviews from customers, and we'd kind of pinch ourselves, like, did we tell them to say that? So they would say things like, I got this collar and it's amazing it stayed on. And we're like, God, what happened? We like seeded those thoughts in their brain.
Yeah.
But so we really realized that other people were having the same experience as us. And so that, coupled with curiosity in terms of finding out like, well, how far can we push this? Can we like cure this problem for more cats? Really fueled us in those early days where it wasn't, not really a business. It was, a hobby more than anything, but that definitely got us over the first hurdles.
And I think realizing that there was also a delivery system to the market in that it was a worldwide issue, in that cats are universal. It's a universal problem, and the product could be shipped across the world easily. In that there was a big enough market of people, if you looked at a worldwide way, and we were only very small, but even in the beginning, we were shipping collars all over the place.
Our first order was to Australia, which is extraordinary, really.
Yeah, so definitely want to come back around to this testing of the waters and see who would buy in a bit. But I think one thing that you touched on was just around this. I think, Kevin, you mentioned the business that you started had to be in your own image, something that you were proud of. And I think this is an important point about how I think there are a couple different types of people that might be introduced into entrepreneurship. One is where where it's almost like opportunistic, like what is the maximizing for profit, a bottom line, or even top line. But you mentioned that for both of you is about being happy and something that was maybe intrinsically rewarding. How do you kind of keep this top of mind these days and make sure that the moves that you make, the decisions you make, the things you commit to for the business are intrinsically valuable to you, that will keep you happy versus just an opportunity?
I think it's something we think about all the time, and we always remind ourselves that that was our founding principle. So in things like our customer service, you could probably approach that in a few ways. There would be like a sort of profit or financially driven approach where you sort of work out in the intersecting lines of customer satisfaction and return on investment in customer service and refunds, where the perfect sweet spot is. But for us, our priority is to make people happy. So we design, because that's how we want to be treated. And so we design all of our customer service protocols to achieve customer happiness, not the sort of optimal financial resolution for a request.
Yeah,
things like that.
We were talking about it earlier. I think about we come up with ideas, lots of ideas, and we've got short attention spans. And there are thousands of ideas that you come up with, and lots of things you can do. And I think it's the limiting of what you do. Often we sort of think, well, let's not do that. It's overstretching ourselves. And is that really delivering, anything better for the customer? And you go, well, no, not really. And then if it's not, then why do it?
Yeah.
We do limit our decisions quite often.
Even on a selfish level, we limit the scope of our product range. For example, there are other products that we could offer for cats, but they're not things we use ourselves. They're not things that I feel like we could advocate for with the same passion as we do our existing products. So we just don't stock them, or we don't design them, because it wouldn't come from the heart. That would come from a sort of a budgetary decision. So yeah, it weaves through everything. Really.
Yeah, I mean, we dabbled with selling other people's stuff, didn't we?
Yeah.
With the idea of thinking, well, we could do with trying to get some more revenue in. So maybe we should just stock other products that we like, and that didn't sit well with us, because it wasn't ours. We weren't doing anything better than anybody else. It was just another. And then to make that profitable, you then had to, cut corners a little bit. You had to skin it all down to make it work, and that just didn't seem right somehow. So we abandoned that and stuck to what we do really.
I think also in the genesis of our products, there was a point. I suppose when we first started Superkit, we never set out to be a luxury brand, but I think that's kind of sort of where we sit at the moment. But that was very much born of, at every point where we sat down ourselves or later with a manufacturer and we had the choice of something amazing or something that was good enough, we could not, there's loads of points where an accountant would say we should have made choices for the cheaper material, the faster process. But as cat owners and lovers, we made the decision we'd want for our own pet. And the result of that is our products are expensive. It also means they last a long time. But, there's an alternative business model where we made the opposite decision and probably would sell a lot more volume and potentially have, a higher turnover. But for us, it's got it's got to be the decision that's right for us, I think.
That comes with the people that, we outsource to. We have a manufacturer now. We don't make them ourselves anymore. We have a manufacturer who makes them far better than we ever did. They're amazing. And we have a really good relationship with them. And we probably could go and have it made cheaper somewhere else, but I don't think their heart would be in it in the same way. And it's worth it to us, to keep that manufacturer and just keep that quality really high. The same as our fulfillment as well, in that we use the same fulfillment as other people, and we haven't got a great deal of control over it because obviously they're a large company and they just do it one way. So we supplement that ourselves to give the customer a better experience, so that there isn't really any quibbles. If anything's wrong, we fix it. And that costs money, but it's worth it because the customer gets a better service or gets the best service. And that's something we have to add on top of the basic service that a 3PL can give you. So I think that's pretty much it.
It's basically, now that we're saying it out loud, it's essentially we design the service or the product that we think we could be proud of, and then the price is set around that. That's secondary to the initial development.
So like during this process where you are exploring other opportunities, like you mentioned, stocking other third parties or making decisions about what to include in your scope, and you mentioned that one of the founding principles is making sure that you both are happy, and then as well as delivering value to the customer. Do you have like kind of guardrails in place to make sure that these things are always respected, or do you just kind of not bank on, but like just rely on your both your intuitions that you are saying yes to both of these questions about your happiness and your customer's happiness?
I mean, I think we have oversight over all of the business, though. We're constantly asking these questions, and I think it's something we really instill in our team as well. When they join, we give them a sort of manifesto which explains our core principles, with the view that they'll sort of bake them into their decision making as well. But we're not perfect. We don't always get it right, but we do, I think, know when we've got it wrong. Like when we're stocking third parties, it just didn't feel right, and I think we kind of are quite receptive to those gut feelings when we have them, and sort of not we're sort of resistant to changing our minds if it doesn't feel right.
We're pretty flexible in that way, aren't we? I think we chop it. We're ready to make a change quite quickly if something's not working.
I think that's something also, a skill that is worth exploring, about being kind of agile, and most specifically being able to say, you know what, I invested in this, whether it be time or money. For example, using this example again of stocking third-party products, you've invested time into it, you might have invested money into it, energy into it, and then just kind of cutting your losses. I think can be hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, and just saying, let me just try it out some more, stick it out some more, and kind of have this like sunk cost, right, associated with the time and effort you put into it. Tell us more about like maybe your thought process, or like how you think about recognizing that you have this intuition, this feeling that this is not the right thing for my business, and being able to act on it. I think that's a much bigger step than just recognizing, but actually being able to act on pulling back or changing direction.
I think a lot of that comes from us we're happy to have lots of ideas, and we're very happy to let those ideas go. The kind of we don't, so there's no pride in it, if you know what I mean. You don't become proud of your idea and then stick at it belligerently and sort of keep going to make it right, to make it prove. I will prove that I was right. Sometimes an idea comes and it's a good idea, and you try, and guess if it just doesn't work for us, it's a nice idea for somebody else. We have that a lot. We always come up with things going, oh, should we do that? And go, yeah, that's good. Probably for somebody else, actually, not for us. So then we'll just write it off. Or one of us will come up with an idea, and the other one will cross-examine it, and sort of go, not sure if that's going to work. And we go, yeah, okay, fair enough, and then move on. I mean, I think you just don't have to be too proud of your ideas. They come and they go, and it's letting go of them very quickly, and then go, right, that's gone. Move on with something else.
I think that comes. Partially, I'm sure there's other disciplines, but for us, I think that comes very much from our television background, in that we worked in kind of creative industries where your ideas would be shot down all day. I mean, that's the process. And, not all of them, but you would get quite used to sort of pitching things or suggesting ideas, and then immediately emotionally divorcing yourself from them. So, if you went home hurt at the end of every day where your ideas have been shut down, you wouldn't last a week. So you develop quite a thick skin. I think that's been useful in the business. Totally.
And then you're ready to come up with a new idea. You go, hey, try this size, and you try it on. You go, yeah, it didn't work. Okay, well, let's try something else. That's how good ideas come. By being brave enough to be able to vocalize them and think through, and then go, oh yeah, that's crazy, it doesn't work for us. Move on. But and then it's finding those diamonds in the dust, if you know what I mean. Then you have to be quite picky and go, yeah, that's got something, and when we both agree on something, and then we try out, you try to take it a bit further.
There's an aspect about how during this brainstorming phase or very early days of an idea that there's a quantity that matters, right? That there's a volume of ideas that you discover or you present to your team that makes a big difference. And I think there's also this trust that you need to have in yourself that there will be more ideas. There's not that this is not your best idea ever, and just feel like you're stuck to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pot overflows. It's constantly flowing. That's the thing, is that just because it's an inexhaustible supply of new ideas. There'll always be new ideas.
Yeah, it sometimes feels like a tsunami of ideas, and it's sort of like just trying to keep your head above water is the issue. Yeah. But also, I think not just it's important not just to generate ideas in quantity, but also to iterate on them. So I think I drive our team crazy, but I'm always saying I just need to let that idea percolate for a bit longer. And what that really means is it just needs to swirl around in my brain while I go for runs, walks, see friends. And then, it's all the time sort of brewing away and we're having conversations about things. And I think that kind of iterative process where initial germ of an idea becomes something richer and deeper and more important, more intrinsic to the business is an important process.
Yeah, what I'm hearing, what you're saying is that there's a balance between an idea and action, right? I think there's this belief maybe in entrepreneurship where everything needs to be action, needs to be driving forward at 100 miles per hour or whatever the max speed you can go. What I'm hearing you say is that there's a kind of a timing. There's almost like you mentioned, there's a brewing or some kind of marination phase that needs to play out with an idea.
Yeah, and that idea ferments over time and develops into something that takes a different form from what it started. So by giving it the time to grow a little, sometimes it turns into something different. But it never would have happened unless you had the germ of the idea in the beginning that you let expand a little bit. I think we were saying earlier that it's important. The things that you don't do are equally as important as the things that you do. That's when we used to work, we worked in TV, and people would talk about framing up shots. And I always said to people when they were saying, "How do you frame up a nice shot?" You go, "Well, exclude everything you don't want in there." And then usually you're left with something pretty good. If you think about, well, what's good? You go, well, what isn't good? What don't you like is as important. So it's what you leave out of the frame is more important sometimes than what you put in it. And that's I think that's for us as well. What we don't do is more important than what we do sometimes.
Yeah, and we're so small. Now we have 4 people in the team, and we don't have huge aspirations to have 200 team members. So we have to be really selective. Our business manager Becky is always saying, we don't want to be busy idiots. You don't want to just run around doing for the sake of doing. It's got to be like a kind of coherent journey in a set direction, with the option to change direction if it's not working out. But we have to be so selective over what we do.
And so not just selective, but then also selective so that you also have this breathing room or margin for error or for margin for being able to just think about what you should be doing. What about that? How do you make sure that that's because you have extra space, you don't just fill it up with more things, but just to have some more, boundaries or a wider border between what you're working on and then all the things that are asking to be worked on?
I mean, I don't think we've cracked it, is the first thing. But, we have tried to build breathing time, for instance, into our year. So we know that for us, August is not a busy month for sales. So we kind of try to encourage the team to take their foot off the gas in August and not start new projects, but finish off things from earlier in the year. The little bits of administration that don't get done when we're all planning our next sort of big launch or whatever.
Like tidy up at the end of the year, and then September is back to school.
Yeah,
and then that feels like into Q4, and it's all busy, and we make rules that we sometimes break, but that we're not going to make any big major decisions or do anything new until a time, until say January, till the new year, February. That's when we'll do something new. And I think we got better at that, haven't we? Last year, we kind of took on too much last minute, trying to rush things through. And we learned the hard way, because it was a pretty spectacular failure, that we spent a lot of energy and money driving something forward that essentially failed, lost us money and lost a lot of time. Whereas if we concentrated on what we did have already, we would have probably done better. And I think this year we've learned from that, and that's what we're doing. And we've kind of put a line in the sand and said nothing new until spring, and no more big ideas. We've put, as far as products go, or major changes to products, and we'll just concentrate for the next few months on getting the business in good shape. Keeping it on the tracks, and building it up and driving it forward, but with what you've got.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too overly dramatic, but I could imagine that other than you two and the small team you have around you, everything else wants you to do more. So how do you make sure that that's respected? It sounds like some of it snuck through last year. But what have you learned about how to keep those boundaries?
That is very apt. It did sneak through because we got overexcited and we broke our own rules, but we just say no a lot. Don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the reality of it, and it's really hard to do.
It's funny, yeah. It's funny what you said actually about other people wanting you to do more, and that's something that we've found is that there's a lot of people in this business world that we've found that want us to grow too quickly and to be too big, if you know what I mean, too fast. And for us, that's not the goal. I know it doesn't sound particularly great for business, but it's not the goal, you know what I mean? And you could be pushed into doing more than you really want to. But the problem with that is it pushes the business out of the shape that you want it to be from outside influences. And I think we found that where there are offers of funding, or there's offers of investment, or offers of financial help from governments, and all sorts of things that you think, oh, that's attractive. We could do that, and then you look at it, you go, well, do we really want to do it? It's nice to have extra money and investment and all the rest of it, but you just think, well, actually, it's not what we want to put, not the direction we want the business to go into. So let's not.
Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time imagining sort of future Superkit and wondering if we would want to work there, and that's kind of our temperature check for those sort of ideas.
Yeah. So one thing that you had mentioned too was about how the biggest lesson a big lesson that you learned this past year was around concentrating on what you already have. I think there's a really important point about how I think when people start business for the first time, they might think about launching with a bunch of different products, or even if they launch with just one product line, they're quickly thinking about what's next. Tell us more about what it means for you and your business to make sure that you are concentrating on what you already have.
Yeah, I think the reason we got excited, very much like you say, is that we were looking for the next thing. You say, well, okay, we've done that. What's next? What else? How do we build up our sort of repertoire products, without realizing that the products that we were selling already are nowhere near maxed out. We really had, because we sell worldwide. We thought, right, the way to build this up is to have extra products to sell to the the people that have already bought something from us. Our products are. Our products are really well made.
They last forever.
they last a really long time, and they don't get lost very often. Yeah. Which in resale values, people aren't coming back and buying collars every week, and the harnesses, last a long time. So I think we thought, well, we need to have new products or develop new things that those people can buy. I don't think we fully realised that the potential market was much greater than we were selling to. And I think that's where we changed direction, and we said, let's concentrate our efforts into spreading ourselves out across a wider market and selling to more people, rather than making more products and selling to the same people. So I think that's where the sort of shift went.
It's worth mentioning that we have also existed at quite an interesting time in our niche, because when we first started, so we've talked about how collars came about, but we also sell harnesses, which were just a straight up request from our community. But it was a super niche community, mostly in America and California, a little bit in Australia, but it wasn't a big market when we created the harness. And we have grown, like, you know, I don't know, chicken and egg, but like we have grown with that market. And now walking with cats on harnesses is a much bigger phenomenon than it was 3 years ago when we developed the harness. So we've kind of also been gifted a bigger sort of playground for that product, which we had by no means fully exploited. So I think when we developed our harnesses, we felt like, there's probably not a very big market. We need to develop something else. Sort of fast forward 2-3 years, I think we had this moment where we were on a super niche specialist private Facebook group for people who go exploring with their cats. And we were looking at the photos and we're like, I think naively and probably big-headedly, we expected to see a lot of our harness, and we didn't. We were like, oh my God, there's all these cats out there. And they're not wearing a harness. That's amazing. Like, both a shock, but also
it's a double-edged sword that one. We were gutted and thrilled at the same time. You know,
that the market had suddenly like just blossomed, and that there was this whole new group of people to talk to. So that had also shaped quite a bit of our decision making. I think we realised it's a much bigger world than we thought it was, and that is slightly arrogant of us to think that we've kind of we sold it to everybody. Now let's make some more stuff, and we'd like no. That's the problem, is that when you are engaged in e-commerce, obviously you speak to your customers, and you probably speak to people on social and by email and any other way that you can. But there's a sort of an echo chamber effect where you don't know how many people you're not speaking to easily, and it's hard to get a temperature check on that. So for us it was really eye-opening, actually, just seeing that whole market had blossomed while we had sort of had other things on.
And that's what we've been concentrating on, and I think that's what we're concentrating on moving forward. It's not developing new products, but developing these new markets, to sort of find out what, how we get in touch with these people, how we can talk to them. Because like Levi said, it is a bit of an echo chamber. The internet, it only bounces back off what you hit. You only get a feedback off what you're hitting. You don't know what else you're not hitting, so you have to go out there and kind of, search for the new places. And that's what we're doing now, and it's a good move.
So I think you both summarized up like the answer to about what should you be doing then if you're not creating new products, which is looking for new markets for the same product. And I think this is a nuance, like veteran entrepreneurship thought that you've had. So tell us more about like what the difference is between the effort that you might put into finding more products to sell to your existing customer base versus finding a different or larger customer base to buy your existing products.
I mean, one thing that we recognized is that in the early days of offering a cat harness, which you used to walk your cat, is that we developed a product. I'm really proud of it. I genuinely think it's a fantastic cat harness, but over time we discovered that it is not sufficient to simply put it on your cat and then walk your cat, who maybe has never been outside before, out of the front door. Like, there is a huge amount of training that has to go in. And the early customers we attracted were already harness training their cats. They were, tapped into blogs and forums and community leaders, and they were getting this information themselves. They trained their cat. They probably used another harness before us. Then, they had the headaches that other people had experienced, and they came to us. So we had kind of, creamed off the very easiest customers who were just looking for the physical product. As we've expanded our reach and we're attracting customers who are just curious about whether they could take their cat outside, we've discovered that it's no longer sufficient to simply offer the physical product. And then, so for, I would say, a period of maybe 2 years, we offered, and still do offer, really enhanced customer support around the process of harness training. And then in the last year, we've actually kind of taken that to the next level and created a course that we sell through the Shopify platform through an integration with Learn Worlds. And that is like a fully, we went back to our old TV roots and we recorded like a full video interactive training course so that people can train their cats at home and then put the harness on them and have success. And I think that journey from just kind of having the easiest customers in the world, those lovely early customers, to going through, I would say, like a potential pain period of having to do huge amounts of education and actually undoing some bad training with customers where it had like not gone right, to being able to formalize that into a product has been a really nice process for us ultimately.
That's interesting, the observation about how the kind of the larger your market, the more it grows beyond your kind of, diehard core original customers, is that there's just more training involved because they're just maybe less aware, right? Less aware of the problems or the solutions that are available. So while you were creating either the customer support, and definitely want to talk about the course in a bit, but when you're creating customer support, the education that is accessible, when is that most important? When is it most important to introduce them to the education? Is it before they buy, after they buy? Like, when do you find that education is most valuable?
I think it's all the way through, really. We found that at the beginning, before people buy, one of the most important things that we found was getting the correct fit for your cat. I mean, cats are all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and we make a harness that's very adaptable across 3 different sizes. And making that choice is really important. And we really worked hard on that at the beginning because we found that people were either not having success because the harness was a bad fit, which is pretty key to a cat not being, comfortable in it and wanting to walk in it. And also then you also get a lot of returns as well. So people will be returning the product and trying a different size. And we realized that it was such a key thing that we put a lot of energy in before purchase to educate people in why it needed to be the right fit, not just think, oh, my cat's medium, I'll get a medium. That you really do have to measure your cat in different dimensions and work out which of the 3 harnesses you need.
We also massively manage people's expectations before they buy the harness, which seems a bit counterintuitive because it's a little bit of a downer. So we do a lot of work to kind of explain to people that you can't just like pop your cat in a harness and walk out the door, and that you will have to train them, and it's not like it looks on Instagram, and kind of set people up for success down the line. If they hear all of that and they really want to go for it, then it's like sort of the perfect fertile ground for success. So we deliver some of that up front so that people know what they're getting into.
I was going to say, in the post-purchase, we follow that up with especially before the course, quite a lot of sort of detail of how to put your cat into the harness to start with and what to expect. And because you can be quite different when you put a cat into a harness for the first time and it puts a harness on, they tend to drop to the ground quite quickly because it's an unusual experience for them. And then when they do start to move, they start to do these really unusual walks, which you might think was, a lot of people would take the harness straight off again and think, right, I can't do that. They don't like it. But then you realize that it's just like anything. If you start to learn to do something new, you're not very good at it at first, and then you just get better and better.
Yeah. So we take people through that process of like a kind of gradual introduction. So we do that in email, and then we have video content that kind of breaks out from the email. There's also instructions in along with the product, but about kind of doing everything at the cat's pace and doing a sort of phased introduction. And we also offer advice about, we've come up with like whole phrases for things that kind of didn't really exist before. Like I think, invented the concept of like a safe leash position to try and get people to understand like how to hold the leash when they're walking with their cat. So that's kind of all unpacked in email sequences and in like kind of printed materials with the harness.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So post-purchase, you're hitting them with email or inserts with the package. What about when you are managing their expectations or helping them choose the right product? Where is that presented? Is it on the product page? Like, how do you make sure that you're guiding your customer into the right product and the right expectations?
I think, we start that kind of like right at the beginning. So like very often people come to us through social. So we we work really hard to show the reality of training or introductions or like very modest cat walking as well. So although if you look at our Instagram, you'll see cats at mountains. We also sort of celebrate cats who sit on their balcony or in their back garden or just on their back doorstep, and kind of try to manage people's expectations about what their cat will and won't achieve.
Yeah.
And then we've got videos that kind of just say it straight out, like, your cat might be the next canyon adventurer, but, you know, they might just want to sit on the back doorstep, and either is cool. So if people hear that and think, no, that's not cool with me, then they probably won't end up being our customers. But if they kind of nod along and think, actually, I want what's best for my cat, and if that's what my cat is happy with, then that's fine by me, then those are the people that will kind of, our message resonates with and end up becoming our customers.
We put a lot of stuff on the product page as well. It's a lot of signposting to really get home the idea that the choice is an important choice of which size you buy. And I think that's been pretty fundamental. We built that, and we've built it, and we've built it, you know, and we started off being subtle, and then we're not subtle in the slightest now. We realize that, the stronger that messaging is, the happier the customer is, because they want a good result, obviously, and they also don't want to return a product and buy another one. They get it right first time. Yeah. So it makes, it's good for them. And I think that we at the beginning, we were probably too subtle, thinking we don't want to preach to people, we don't want to keep hammering on with this, but now we do. And every opportunity we get, pretty much we'll make sure that people have considered it before they check out.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes and let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. Now, let's talk about the course. So at what point did you recognize or realize that this was an important thing to add into the business?
I think it came through customer service. I think we discovered people asking for help with introductions. That we would get messages like, I put the harness on my cat, but they don't like it. So, what do I do now? And so we would be providing advice around that. We built blog posts with kind of a sort of a process that we would suggest for an introduction. Also, around this time, we kind of realized that we needed to level up our skills to be able to provide this advice. So I went off and did a course in feline behavior. My original degree was in biology, so it was a kind of like additional feline behavior qualification, so that we weren't just, we developed a lot of on-the-job experience, but, we also wanted that to be built on a bedrock of very rigorous scientific principles. And so, we started offering this customer advice, but we realized we were doing it only for the customers who would reach out in customer service. They would get an amazing experience where, email sometimes for weeks on end with advice and feedback and look at pictures or videos. But I guess we kind of felt like it was a shame that not everyone could have that level of service.
That for every person that gets in touch and wants to, be in touch with customer service and gets that service, there's probably 3 or 4 that haven't bothered and that sort of didn't feel like they could ask and haven't had a good service. And you sort of think, well, it would be great to enrich those customers as much as the ones that reach out. We also were doing it piecemeal, which is not very effective, not very efficient, in that you're delivering a small piece of information here and a small piece of information here, but they didn't necessarily tie up. You're fighting fires as opposed to creating, a fire break. You sort of like, what you want to do is start again and sort of go right from the beginning. If you start well, you'll have a really good progression through this. So we wanted to get something that was a bit more of a holistic approach right from the beginning, right through to the end, to tie up all these little nuggets of information, small videos and bits of information that we put together in charts and stuff. And we sort of, well, let's put it all together in one strong course.
Was it something that was easy to put together, given your experience, and kind of needed some place to put it down? Or like, what was the process behind creating or maybe first, like, how large is this course? Like, talk to us about like the process behind creating it.
It was quite a lot of work, but it felt great to do because it was like you say, just getting it down formally for the first time. It's quite a detailed course. It has 6 modules, and we debated a lot about. So it includes two skills that actually are not directly related to harness training, which is recall training your cat and then getting them happy in like a safe space, like a carrier or a backpack, before you even start harness training, which I know is like kind of frustrating because you want to get on with the harness training, but it does mean by the time that they can interlace the training and do it all at the same time. And it means that by the time we're kind of sending our cat graduates out across the threshold out on their first trip outside, that they've got all of the range of skills they'll need to have a sort of rewarding and safe and fun experience. So we've kind of, it's really fundamental training. And we built it through kind of a convergence of two things. One was the sort of the animal behavior processes of like counter conditioning and desensitization to the harness, so that your cat will build positive associations with the harness and isn't afraid of it. And then we also pulled in basically every question we ever got in customer service, so that we were actually targeting, the real world questions that wouldn't otherwise get covered. So we kind of, it was a bit of a pincer maneuver.
Yeah. And I think the main thing, it is quite a long course and there's quite a lot of content in it because it moves quite slowly, which is the way that you have to move when you're training any animal. It's small increments. If you rush it, you go too fast and you miss it, and then they fall off the wayside. So I think it's a very small, tight detail all the way through, which makes it quite a heavy course. But it's there's lots in it, but it's not difficult, if you know what I mean. So we kept working on it and making it more and more detailed, I think.
It really grew out of our experiences in customer service, that we were aware that there are principles that if you apply them to this question will give you the right answer. So if you learn how to read a cat's body language, you'll know when they're happy and when they're not. So you'll know how your training is going. And we were doing this behind the scenes, and then we were doing the math and then delivering the answer to the customer. And what the course does is let the customer do the math themselves. So they learn to read their own cat. So they know how to proceed. So it kind of, it teaches them to fish, I guess, is the analogy.
I think one of the big questions for anyone that is looking at creating a digital content, like a course, for example, is like, what should I put in there? And I think you touched on a really important gold mine for you, is if you have a business already or have some way to find out what are the questions everyone's asking and what kind of maybe frequency of questions or important questions people are asking. It sounds like a lot of the course is built around that. It's just answering the questions that you saw often.
Totally. I mean, that was essentially how the framework of the course is built, and then the colouring in inside is just the kind of the behavioural stuff. But because we'd spent by that point 2-3 years answering those questions, it was really helpful. We had a good grasp on where people got confused and where they where people drop off in training as well. There are sticking points, isn't there?
Yeah. Where some people can't get past a certain point and they're going great until they get to this point. You go, I just can't get past this point. Or they'll suddenly, the cat will suddenly not want to be in their harness anymore. You go, well, it was doing fine. Why did it suddenly stop?
Yeah.
And there's usually a really good reason for that. And it's quite simple, and you work backwards and you can find it. But you're just getting that framework, getting that timeline.
I mean, the other thing is that our course can't, because cats, like humans, are, they have personalities and they're unique and they have their own life experiences. So there are still questions that are not covered that are specific to one cat's personal experience. So then we kind of draw on community meeting places, whether it's our forum or a private Facebook group, so that people can share their experiences of how they trained their 3-legged cat with somebody else who's in that same situation. And so there's also our community teaching each other, which is a lovely thing to see.
Yeah, it's great.
With the course, are these mostly existing customers that are buying, or are there existing customers that bought the harness buying it as well?
What's been really lovely to see is that a lot of people buying both at the same time, which is, it's kind of the ideal, and it definitely sets the odds in their favour for that absolute perfect journey with the harness.
Because it's a new course that we've introduced after the harness. The harness has been on sale for a few years. before the course, we are getting previous customers that have bought the harness and then have come back and bought the course. And we've had really good feedback from them that it's really improved their experience with the product, which is great. So, that's been lovely. I mean, going forward, I guess in time, hoping that people will buy it at the same time. But I'm sure there'll be a certain amount of previous customers that will buy.
Yeah.
And what was the process for marketing a course like this? Because it is pretty niche, right? Where customers maybe could all benefit from it, but might not be necessarily seeking it out. So what's your process for building awareness and marketing a course?
That's kind of work in progress. Yeah, well, to be totally honest,
our marketing manager built a really strong influencer campaign. So there are. It is how most of our community are finding the idea or getting the idea of walking with their cats, is they're seeing other people doing it and thinking, I'd love to try that with my cat. And so we teamed up with, we informally called, I don't think they know they're called this, but we rallied the Friends of Superkit, which are the influencers that have been instrumental to our company for a very long time, who are super loyal contributors, and we have a great relationship with them. So we kind of sent the bat signal out to the Friends of Superkit, and they posted content around the launch, and they were really excited to do so too, because their Instagram DMs, for example, are just full of people. They were kind of in the same situation we were. People would be reaching out all the time, asking them for advice. In an Instagram DM, they were not capable of delivering the nuance and detail that they wanted to give their community the right level of introduction. And so for them to be able to send their community somewhere where they could trust that they were going to get really sort of reputable advice was great for them, and obviously worked for us. So that was really successful, and it's been a really quite organic launch to the product, which has been nice to see.
Yeah, when I talk a little bit more about marketing, maybe specifically around the harness and collar products themselves. And one thing you had mentioned to us was that the Facebook and Instagram visual marketing, you would imagine that a product like this would do very well. And it was actually too engaging. The content you're putting out there was too engaging. Tell us more about why this was an issue.
I would say our business started on Instagram. So when we finally were at a point where we were, big enough, and we were still at the kitchen table, but we started to think about paid pay-per-click marketing, advertising, it kind of was natural that the first thing we would try was Facebook and Instagram. And that was the start of a really long road of, we learned a lot, but to sort of cut a long story short, we were never able to reliably achieve profitability with our pay-per-click on Instagram and Facebook. We didn't run it ourselves for 2 years, and we then got an agency to run it. They did a good job, and then we took it back and we tried again. And ultimately, the problem that we continually ran into was that our product is super niche, super niche, and but conversely, cats and all of our imagery are clickbait. So we would get a lot of interest and engagement on our ads, but translating that into sales, actually, finding the people that we needed to be speaking to, we just weren't able to achieve. No. We couldn't, it just didn't feel right. We kept going back to it and back to it. And now I feel like we've made our peace with it. We really did bottom it out. But yeah, it was a strange issue to have. Yeah, we had to send it out, didn't we, to realise that we weren't doing something wrong. We kept thinking, surely we're doing something wrong here. And we sent it out, and the company that we spoke to, they were really buzzed to be doing this. They're like, great, you mean pictures of cats? Everybody loves pictures of cats. We've got lots of great material. Who doesn't want to be served that sort of material? And I think they thought it was going to be much easier than it was. And they also couldn't understand why they weren't getting the results that they thought they were going to do. And between us, when we started analysing after about 6 months of doing it with them, we analysed all the results, and we kind of got to the conclusion that we were lost in a sea of cat pictures. There's so much material out there that finding us in it is really tricky.
And we've had a bit of a different approach really to doing that. And then we brought it back again. We tried it again, really, really worked on the funnel, really, had a great plan. And we were confident. We were sure we nailed it by this point. And that didn't work either.
I mean, to be entirely clear, we did end up developing a fully pay-per-click funnel that worked. It did find our people and they did buy, but the cost of acquisition was prohibitively expensive. And so you kind of at that point, we kind of tried it every which way. And we put it to bed. I mean, never say never. And then there might be times when we are lured back again in future. But then conversely, surprisingly, like Google Shopping does really well for us. So it isn't how I would have predicted, but you kind of have to go with the numbers.
Yeah, I think this is an important point about, especially when you're like a bootstrap or a much smaller beginning startup, is that engagement is not really the right metric to focus on, right? That yes, you can get a bunch of cheap and highly engaged people to come, but a lot of them are just here for the content itself and not actually ready or looking to buy, which is why probably why Google Shopping worked out for you, especially when it's a niche product. People probably have a specific problem they're trying to solve. So tell us more about that. Once you have recognized that yes, you were getting lots of engagement on a platform but not converting into sales, what was your approach to launching campaigns on Google Shopping?
Well, that we actually have always run in parallel. So fortunately, because otherwise we might have been more despairing of pay-per-click, but we kind of knew there were channels that did work for us. So yeah, we run shopping campaigns in our kind of 5 key territories, and all of those have worked really nicely for us. We also do some more text-based ads, but far and away the shopping campaigns are the most effective, and we have kind of separate feeds set up for each of them. And they've been really instrumental to our business. And I think, like you say, somebody that goes to Google and searches in our very specific search terms has already been on a lot of the journey before. And we know from looking at our kind of attribution pathways, they've touched us on social, and the pay-per-click is not the whole story, but it is that final hurdle that brings them to our store. So they've gone and researched collars or harnesses, and then they're finally coming to us. So yeah, that's worked really nicely. And originally, I think when we started on Google Shopping, I may be wrong, but we certainly weren't aware of much like Google AI around it. So we were really manually managing those campaigns. But about 18 months ago, the kind of smart shopping campaigns outperformed our, painstakingly manually kind of gardened ones. And so we've kind of switched everything onto smart campaigns, which is, a whole job off our backs. I mean, it does make me feel a little bit squiggly about the rise of the machines, but I'm prepared to leave that be for the time being. And the results speak for themselves. They do well.
I think that you're right. That it isn't everything. Like using the AI and doing the campaigns very manually. It rides on the back of a lot of organic traffic. So a lot of the work we do, we have organic traffic, and people find us that way. The Google ad is the way that gets somebody over the line to buy, not necessarily the way that it isn't the thing that brings them in the first place. So. I think it shares a lot of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So superkit.co is the website, and we've talked a lot about saying no to more things and how that's had such a big impact on the focus and the success of the business in the direction that you want. So tell us more about maybe something that is the most exciting thing that you and your team have said yes to that maybe you can share publicly.
I don't want to sort of bang on about the courses, but for me, that's felt like the great kind of new seam of exciting stuff that we've unlocked, and that we're, the early feedback is positive enough for us to kind of double down and get really excited about that. Just because our founding ethos was helping out humans and their cats. And I think we've realized that you can go so far with products, but actually there's this whole world of training to be unlocked, and being able to do that through Shopify and kind of integrate both together has been really exciting. So that's what we're buzzed about at the moment, is kind of thinking about what other areas we can help people in. And
through that digital medium as well. I mean, a digital product that isn't a physical product, I think is very exciting for us as well, because it has its advantages, and like you say, you can deliver loads of content in that way and help. I think it's that's something that's really exciting, and I think it ties in with us not wanting to make things for making things sake. We keep creating physical products only if people want them and need them. And if you can make a digital product that really helps as well, I mean, it kind of ticks a lot of boxes for us.
It also, I think, on just a personal level, is reminding us of like the free son of excitement of the early days of physical products and Superkit, in that, we produced our course ourselves. And so it's like we're kind of back to the kitchen table. And now we're thinking, I really enjoy that process of strategy. Like, okay, we've done something at the kitchen table. How do we scale that? How do we make it like a, repeatable? Do we bring people in? Who do we partner with? So we're getting to have all those fun conversations again, which feels like a kind of like little second honeymoon.
Yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. Exciting stuff. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and advice, Laylee and Kevin.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.